Hello everyone, I'm forecaster Jack Sillin here with your tropical weather discussion video for Monday, August 17th, 2020. As expected, this video is going to be a little bit more action-packed, as well as this week in the tropical Atlantic. This is right at the start of that period of favorable conditions we've been talking about since basically mid to late July. It's that favorable pulse of the MJO, that Kelvin wave, circulation, whatever you want to call it. There's a little bit of a debate there, but we're not going to get into that in this video. It's moving into the Atlantic, which means that we are expecting activity to pick up over the next couple weeks, and we're starting to see the first signs of that in the Atlantic this afternoon. So, two disturbances to talk about today. I'm going to discuss them in a little bit of detail, but in the interest of keeping this video to my sort of ballpark 10-minute range, we're not going to be able to take as deep a dive as I would like to. That will be done in the blog, on the blog and blog posts over the next several days. So plenty of discussions still to be had on each of these storms. So if I don't get to a couple of the nuances, be patient. Neither of these storms poses an imminent threat to the U.S. There's a big if here. If these storms were to impact the United States, it would not be for another week to 10 days or so. So this is not anything to worry about imminently. It's just something to sort of keep an eye on, have an eye out on the back burner. Watch and wait really is the name of the game here for the next 5 or so days. So this is the first disturbance. It's moving through the southern Lesser Antilles. You can see the island chain right here. This is South America off to the southwest of the system. It's producing some pretty good convection, some pretty robust thunderstorm updrafts here. You can see cloud top temps dipping below minus 80 Celsius, so that's pretty good. But you can see that there's no sign of any really much spin. There's no sign of organization here, not anything that we could call a central dense overcast or anything like that. So this has a long way to go before it would attain tropical cyclone status. Remember, it needs to have a closed-off circulation, persistent deep convection over the center, near the center, and we have not hit those criteria yet. So as this disturbance drifts off to the west, it will be moving through an environment that's relatively favorable for development. Not exorbitantly so, but you can see that there are cirrus clouds moving off to the south on the southern flank of the system and off to the north on the northern flank of the system. So this is not a system that's going to be struggling with much wind shear, so that'll be helpful for its development. But, of course, as it drifts right along the northern coast of Venezuela here, it's going to get tripped up by interaction with the land. And the eastern Caribbean is a hard place to develop as a tropical cyclone, especially earlier in the season. So I wouldn't expect to see this really turn into much until it arrives in the western Caribbean in a few days. And that's really when most ensemble guidance, to the extent that ensemble guidance picks up on the storm developing, it's once it nears the coast of Honduras and Nicaragua, around about 4 or 5 days from now. So I think the most likely outcome for this storm is that it basically fizzles out over the mountains of Central America. There would be flash flooding, mudslides. This anytime you get a tropical disturbance, or any entity that's associated with deep convection. It could be a tropical depression. It could be a Category 5 hurricane. The biggest problem here in Central America is going to be the heavy rain, and that's true even in this situation where we quote-unquote only have a tropical disturbance. It may not even be tropical depression. It may not have winds more than 25 miles an hour, but when you put that much moisture into the steep terrain, you're going to have problems. So this is a heavy rain threat for parts of Nicaragua, parts of Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Belize, and southern Mexico. All of these areas need to watch out as this storm approaches, even if it doesn't develop. So ECMWF ensemble members really aren't that bullish on this storm. A couple of them take it into the Gulf of Mexico as a tropical storm where it might find a more favorable environment. But interestingly, the GEFS, the brand new upgrade to the GFS ensemble system, is quite a bit more bullish with this storm. So you can see only 2 or 3 ensemble members develop the storm over the next 2 to 3 days as it moves towards the central Caribbean. But then many more of these ensemble members are starting to pick it up as we move towards the day 5 time frame, during which point it would be in the western Caribbean. So I think that this is probably, this is not something to worry about in the day 0 to 3 time frame. It is something to keep an eye on in the day 3 to 5 time frame. If the storm were to develop in this area, it would probably move off to the north northwest, and then it could move into the Gulf of Mexico. Whether it would be a tropical depression or tropical wave at this point, that's very possible. Could it be a stronger storm at this point? That's also possible. But given that this is now starting to get into the day 5 to 7 time frame, and we don't even know if this storm is going to end up developing at all, really don't worry too much. If you're on the eastern Gulf Coast, this is something to keep half an eye on. But really, is this a situation where your level of concern should be much above the baseline of, it's starting to get towards hurricane season, peak hurricane season, so keep an eye on the forecast. I don't really think it's elevated. The concern level should be elevated much above what it normally is during the climatological peak of hurricane season. So keep an eye out. Make sure you're plugged into forecasts. Brush up on your hurricane plan. Now is a really good time to do that while any of these storms are still several days away from the coastline. Remember, a little bit of planning now while the weather is quiet is going to go a long way later when the weather is far from quiet. And that's true if the hurricane that you're planning for happens to hit next week, next month, or next year, or next decade. There's really no way to know until it's just a few days away, and by then you're in a little bit more of a scramble. So take a few minutes this week. Just make sure everything's all up to date, especially update your plans in light of the COVID situation. So some of the plans that you may have thought of in recent years, i.e., evacuate to friends and family or to a shelter, you might want to take another look at that. All right, so that's what the disturbance here in the Caribbean is going to do. We'll just take a quick look at its environment here using ECMWF guidance. So you can see it's starting out in this, it's going to be occupying this pocket of pretty robust mid-level moisture. There's a little bit of dry air well off to the north and west of the storm, but really nothing that it's going to worry about too much. No real dry air concerns as it approaches the coastline here of northeastern Honduras. And then we'll see if it consolidates or not. Absolutely no wind shear to worry about. There's a big upper-level anticyclone here, so this storm will be well ventilated, and that's why I think that the ECMWF is probably underselling the odds of this system developing a little bit. Anytime you get a tropical disturbance over the rocket fuel, very warm waters of the Western Caribbean, you have a giant upper-level anticyclone with no threat of wind shear, and you have no dry air to worry about. It's really just takes one burst of convection and then you're off to the races. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on, even though ECMWF guidance isn't particularly bullish on the storm right now. Okay, well, as I'm thumbing through this loop and now starting to move towards day 4, 5-ish, you might notice this little swirl here over the southwestern Atlantic. So this is the second disturbance that we have to talk about, and before we get back here into what it might do in the medium range, let's take a quick look at what it's up to this evening. So this is the next disturbance to talk about. It's currently west-southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. You'll notice that it's this elongated burst or blob of convection, sort of. There are two lobes, one off to the east and one off to the west. Most guidance is currently expecting this western lobe to become dominant, and this is where we're going to watch for potential tropical cyclone development over the next 3 to 5 days. If we zoom in here a little bit, you can see that the storm is actually doing pretty well for itself at the moment. It's trying to build that central dense overcast. Cloud tops again punching below minus 80 C during the time of day that's typically inhibitive for convection. So this is a really good sign for the storm trying to organize. I guess it depends good or bad if you're rooting for it to develop or not. And you can see the cirrus is blowing off in this clockwise circulation. So big upper-level anticyclone also present here. A little bit of dry air off to the north of the storm, but really nothing major to worry about. This is located in a favorable environment. It's likely to remain in a favorable environment over the next several days. And we can see that by watching the ECMWF forecast here as the storm moves off to the west-northwest. In the mid-levels, moisture is looking pretty good. There's a little bit of dry air both to the northwest and southeast of the storm, but I'm not, this isn't the bone-dry, Saharan dust that we've been tracking earlier in the season. As it moves off to the northwest, it's going to encounter a little bit of wind shear in say on Thursday and Friday, you can see this upper level low. It's dipping down here, and the storm's going to pass right along the southern periphery of that higher wind shear. So that might put a pause on development a little bit by the time we get to the day 3 to 5 period. But then once the storm emerges from that, it's pretty much all systems go, I think. Of course, if the storm sort of gets ripped to shreds, it might take a long time for it to rebuild itself. But overall, I'm pretty bullish on this storm developing into at least a tropical storm as it passes northeast, most likely, of Hispaniola and the Puerto Rico, the northern Lesser Antilles, that area. So there is plenty of uncertainty regarding how strong this is going to get, where it's going to track. Most of that relates to how quickly can it develop initially. Remember, it has to figure out whether it wants the northern lobe or the eastern lobe or the western lobe to become dominant today, basically, or tomorrow. But I think that by tomorrow afternoon, evening, we should see that western circulation really get going. I wouldn't be surprised to see this become tropical depression number 13 by, say, Wednesday morning, and then it moves off north, just to the north of the islands. What happens after that, really anyone's guess. But if we look at ECMWF ensemble guidance, you can see there the storm is moving slowly across the western, the western tropical Atlantic. I guess the western main development region out here. It's going to pass to the north of the Antilles, and then after that, ensemble spread increases greatly after we click over to the day 7 mark. Of course, that's to be expected, right? Some ensemble members taking this into the Gulf, some of them recurving it near the East Coast, off the East Coast. Some ensemble members showing this being a tropical wave at this point. Others are showing this being a strong hurricane at this point. The point is we really don't know what's going to happen 7 days from now, but that's about when the storm would be approaching the U.S. So it looks like I've gone a little bit over my intended 10-minute time frame target. So that's about all I have to say about these disturbances at the moment. Remember, this is peak hurricane season. We're expecting these favorable conditions to continue. We've talked about this time and time again, but this is basically this is peak season. This pattern is going to become favorable. It is starting to become favorable. It will remain favorable for at least the next several weeks. So yeah, make sure that you're ready in case a hurricane arrives at your doorstep. It might be next week, it might be next month, it might be next year, but if you take a little bit of time now to think about what you do, you'll be ready no matter when the storm comes. Alright, that's it for me for now. I'll have plenty more tweets and blogs in the days to come as we watch these systems develop, and I'll have another Monday tropical weather discussion a week from today. That's it for me for now. Thanks so much for watching.